Hi there, Alan here again on the Sats for That podcast, and thanks for listening, hopefully, to the first episode that gives a general overview of generally the reasons behind why I'm doing this. I hope it wasn't too much of a, a hose pipe in the face as such, with water spewing everywhere and just being very confusing for many people. But ultimately, it's hard to gauge where to actually approach this from what angle, because everybody is coming from a different place. And I think when it comes to Bitcoin, you have to be sort of met where you are. There's not a one size fits all approach to increasing your awareness about the technology, about why it's such an important monetary system and savings technology for individuals. But hopefully you found it useful, and it maybe prompted a few of you to maybe look into it in more in depth as such. But again, any questions, feel free to get in touch. In this episode, I'll just give a quick overview. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll probably get a better grasp of what I'm talking about. But ultimately, there is a map called btcmap.org. You can Google that, you can jump on and have a look at it. But ultimately, this is a map where it actually displays all the businesses across the globe currently, or the majority of them, that are now accepting Bitcoin as a form of payment. And there's so many, to choose from effectively. So it's good if you're kind of becoming more aware of what Bitcoin is, sort of having a think about maybe using it or dabbling with it, or having an investment potentially in the actual asset itself. But wherever you travel, you can actually have a look now to see what other businesses in that area are accepting Bitcoin. Now, there's thousands upon thousands of them currently across the globe. Now, I'm based in my local economy is in Northern Ireland, and my opticians practice, I believe, is the first opticians certainly within Ireland and the UK to start accepting Bitcoin in the form of payments. And I have accepted Bitcoin because of all the reasons shared in the first episode. But obviously, I'd taken the time during COVID as a business owner. Everything was so disrupted. It was just, things were just, chucked up into the air. Nobody knew what was happening. And there was one day sitting at home, I thought to myself, well, hold on a second, with the way they're basically just creating money out of thin air, apparently, by the trillions. The US created, I think it was $4 trillion. It was maybe more than that. It was basically 40% of the current money supply was literally just created out of thin air and pumped into the economy, which, caused a lot of inflation, because it inflates the money supply, it inflates assets. So this inflation, this monetary creation generally transfers and travels towards high desirable assets in the form of property and things like that. But it causes the individuals who own these assets, so the rich, the wealthy, effectively, to get rich and wealthier at the expense of everybody else. So it's a very strange system the way it works, and it's a totally broken system when you start to realize how it functions. But we won't get into the nitty gritty of that. But ultimately, in doing so and realizing my business, was closed due to lockdowns, and I started to figure out that I was running a business for there 13 years, and I didn't actually know what money was. When you ask yourself the question, what is money? It's a massive topic to try to figure out. But ultimately, I started to research it a bit and discovered a video series by a guy called Simon Dixon, based out of the Isle of Man. And he's one of the first individuals to discuss and to write about Bitcoin in his book. This is back in 2008, I believe. So Bitcoin itself was created, it was discovered in 2008, and it developed from there. But ultimately, it's the concept of, without knowing the problem and without knowing what money is and how money functions, you won't appreciate then the need for Bitcoin. So you need to start somewhere. You need to start at asking yourself the question, what is money? And if anybody wants to go into this in depth, there's a very good podcast series by a guy called Robert Breedlove. And if you type in even into Google, the Saylor series, Saylor series by Robert Breedlove, he is, I think it's 17 episodes of discussions with a man called Michael Saylor, who's the CEO of MicroStrategy. He's one of the biggest advocates and investors in Bitcoin itself. So that's very interesting. It looks at things from first principles. And I think when you start looking at money from first principles, and then looking at Bitcoin from first principles, tying those two together and realizing the overall concept of why it's such an important thing will really change your viewpoint on, money, but it'll change your viewpoint on the world and potentially on your future and how you're actually thinking about your money, your business, your life, etc. It's an amazing thing. So I would highly recommend that. I will link the episodes to the 4 videos that I watched personally myself that really ignited that question in my mind: what is money? And really, really kind of, made me, acutely aware of the need for discovering and learning more about Bitcoin. And once you get hooked on that and realize and start consuming that content, it blows your mind when you start looking at it all. So I would highly recommend that. I'll put the link in the notes below the episode here. But ultimately, yes, I started accepting Bitcoin in November, I think it was 2022. And it's something, the concept of, yes, I was aware, and I am, as you probably, most people watching and listening to this are aware, not many people really know about Bitcoin. They know of it, but they don't know what it is about it. They don't be using it as a payment method currently. Although a lot of people are starting to in different parts of the world, but generally in the kind of Western world where we live, in the UK, in Ireland, it's not a common theme thing. But ultimately, I believe, and I do believe in the coming sort of decade, the coming 5 to 10 years, this will get more and more adoption and will be happening and will be actually helping societies, businesses locally and beyond over time. But yes, my business itself is Bryden Opticians. It's based in Newton Stewart. I'm actually currently revamping the website for more of an online ability to, look, structure, purpose online payments and things like that for Eyewear. So that will be coming in the next few months. But ultimately, I'm a local practice in a small village. I serve my local community. I test people's eyes, check for general health issues within their eyes, and it's a job that I've been doing now for 15 years. I've been in practice, but the learning about Bitcoin, learning about money and economics and how this whole thing's structured, really just it opened my mind to such. It was basically opened my mind to everything that was missing in my knowledge base, I suppose, of how the world functions, and just being total. It's amazing how totally oblivious I was to certain things. And most people and most individuals, business owners, we start a business, we put our head down, we work really hard, year on year on year, we earn money, we take that money, hopefully we have some money aside to save or invest in, and we just continue the same thing over and over again, similar to like a hamster in a hamster wheel. We're just continually grinding the wheels, and it's hard at times. And when the shock happens within a global economy such as COVID, and such as the amount of money being created in the economy that's causing inflation and prices to rise, it causes people to ask questions. And business owners are the first people to really ask these questions, as well as homeowners, as well as individuals who have to buy their groceries and goods, and they see the price of these things going up. It's really a shocking thing. And depending on where you are in the world, there's different places like Lebanon, Venezuela, even Argentina recently, their inflation was over 104%, the broadcast inflation. Lebanon's currency totally basically went bust. It totally devalued overnight, effectively. The government devalued their currency. And this has been happening for years now. There's certain countries around the world, because of their association with the dollar, because of their governments being corrupt, because of inflation, it's totally eroding the wealth of those individuals that live in those countries. And at the moment, the way things are going, nobody's safe from this, because the concept of money being more and more money being created in the economy is actually devaluing your purchasing power over time. And you'll see different graphs. I'll probably pop one up in this video that, if you look at the US dollar over the last 100 years, the purchasing power of the US dollar has dramatically gone to near zero. It's lost I think it's over 95% of its purchasing power in the last 100 years. It's lost over 60%, I think, in the last 50 years, but it's just going towards zero. So all money, all currencies, all government declared monies will always go to zero. This has happened throughout history, and the current financial system we are using is no different based on the amount of debt that's being currently created. So this map, I will basically be having interviews with various business owners. I will be going into detail of why they're accepting Bitcoin payments, how it's impacted their business, and just their thoughts around what Bitcoin is, why they discovered it, how they discovered it, why other people should potentially take note of it and start learning more about Bitcoin. And we'll offer other options as well to look into different resources, links to the businesses' pages themselves, their websites, their social media, so that you can learn more about these different businesses that are accepting Bitcoin. And it's such a variety. There's pharmacies, there's chiropractors, there's cat and dog homes, there's hotels, cafes, bars, everything, every business you could think of is starting to accept Bitcoin. And this is such an exciting time to be alive, effectively, because in a time of such chaos and total, well, I'd say misinformation across the media and total fear mongering, there is one simple thing that you can do, in that it was something that your great grandparents or your grandparents would have been doing, or your parents potentially, depending on what age you are. It's taking their money, putting it into something that's going to save and store their wealth, that maybe pays a little bit of interest over time. You could once put your money in a bank account or a savings account and earn 4 or 6% interest year on year without taking any real risk. The current system requires us all to risk our money to actually beat inflation. If we're not making more than 10% in our salary or a pay rise every year, and this is conservative because the 10% inflation rate in the UK is the CPI, which is a manipulated figure by government. Again, of course, everything's manipulated. But ultimately, in reality, if you're wanting to be a homeowner, if you're wanting to have a high quality of life, to create wealth for yourself, your inflation rate's more like 20%, maybe more than that. So if you're not making 15 to 20% pay rise every year from now on, you're losing. You're not going anywhere. Your head's underwater. You're not able to survive effectively. So there's a massive problem here in the economy, and the money is the problem. Without the money being secure, hard, sound money that's based on something that cannot be manipulated, and that effectively is Bitcoin. It is a hard, set in stone protocol based on math and code that has a fixed, finite supply. And that's the key point here from this episode, I suppose. The fixed supply of Bitcoin cannot be created more than 21 million. The last Bitcoin will be created or brought into the economy in the year roughly 2141. And that's, over 100 years from now. But ultimately, the fixed finite supply and the aspect of how it's designed means that it's a deflationary currency. It cannot be manipulated, it cannot be increased or inflated, which means that the value of the Bitcoin will mathematically go up over time based on everything else in the economy. Or another way to look at this, everything else on the globe will actually will go down in price over time against your Bitcoin. Whereas at the moment, the current monetary system is basically infinity. They can create as much money as they desire to at the higher levels, which is devaluing your currency. It's causing inflation, which will mean the price of everything will go up year on year on year from now on, and has been for the last 50 plus years. And that's not by accident, it's by design of the system. However, we now have a system which is totally decentralized, separated from government, separated from political aspects, does not discriminate, is true, transparent, cannot be manipulated, is audited every 10 minutes. So a block of Bitcoin is basically sealed and secured or time-stamped on the blockchain, on the Bitcoin network, every 10 minutes, and that transactions on that block cannot be reversed. However, if you're working in a centralized system, people can manipulate, people can change things, they can put an extra zero here and there, they can move things around, it can be manipulated. And the current economic system is being massively manipulated at the moment. We need a system that's set in stone, that's digitally secured. It's the most secure form of digital structure, computing technology that's ever been created, ever been put into the presence of humanity, so to speak. We live in a really important, exciting time. So take the time to discover this yourself. It's something you need to do the work on. You need to take time to really make the effort to read about Bitcoin, discover what it is. We will link resources in this in these episodes as well for you to do that kind of work yourself if you so wish to do. But highly recommend everybody to learn it on their own terms. It's not some get rich quick thing. It's a moral context, a moral imperative for the global economy, for the future of economics and economic systems. It's based on an Austrian economics as opposed to Keynesian economics, which is another thing to look into yourself. It's a very in-depth topic, but ultimately it just makes more sense, effectively. The current system makes no sense whatsoever. There's a simplified, structured, set in stone digital system in cyberspace that's positioned to function for the betterment of humanity in the digital world, where technology is growing rapidly over time. So take the time, have a look at it. Hope you enjoyed the episode. I'll be in touch on the next episode with one of the first business owners to come along and talk and discuss their reasons for accepting Bitcoin in their business. But at the moment, my practice, Bryden Opticians, accepts Bitcoin, and I'll be doing a few videos around that as well on how payments function and how payments work with the company that set up the actual payments mechanism for me to accept the currency. So hope you found it useful. Again, any questions, get in touch. Links are below. Talk again soon.